Welcome back to Reformed Thinking. I'm glad you could join us. Today we're doing something that, on the surface, looks like a genuinely terrible idea for an audio format. We're going to read a legal contract.
It does sound a little dry, doesn't it? A recipe for a good nap.
It really does. I was looking at the schedule for this deep dive, and I saw Genesis chapter 23. And I thought, okay, Genesis, I know Genesis. We have the creation, the flood, the call of Abraham. We have the binding of Isaac. I mean, high drama.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit this chapter, specifically verses 17 through 20, and it feels like the brakes just lock up on the narrative. It's so dry. It's so technical. It's literally a property deed.
It is. It's an inventory, a field, a cave, some trees, the boundaries. It reads just like something you'd pull out of a dusty file at the county clerk's office.
Right. And I have to be honest, usually when I hit a section like that in my Bible reading, I have a very spiritual technique that I use.
Oh, yeah.
I just scan it with my eyes while my brain thinks about what I'm going to have for lunch.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's the standard approach for most people.
I think it is for almost everyone. We tend to think the real Bible, the important stuff, is in the stories or the direct commands. The paperwork that lists, it all just feels like filler.
Yeah, like stuff the editor should have cut out to save on parchment.
But I'm here to suggest that we're wrong, that you're wrong, and that this list of trees and rocks is actually, well, it's incredibly exciting.
Exciting is a strong word.
I'd go further. I would say that this text, this dry, dusty contract, is one of the most powerful arguments for the resurrection of the dead in the entire Old Testament.
Okay, hold on. You're going to have to connect those dots for me. That feels like a massive stretch. You're telling me a real estate transaction from 4,000 years ago is teaching us about the resurrection?
I am.
I'm skeptical. I'm looking at the text right now, and I see a lot of haggling about silver, but I don't see any theology.
That's the beauty of it. The theology isn't in what people are saying about God. It's in the actions they're taking. It's in how they're using their money and what they're doing with their dead.
Okay.
We have to peel back the layers. We have to ask, why is this text even here? I mean, think about it. Moses is writing Genesis. He has limited space, right? And a massive amount of history to cover. So why does he decide to burn valuable space listing every single tree in some random field?
That is a fair question. He leaves out huge chunks of people's lives, but he gives us the landscaping details here. So, okay, let's figure out why. Set the stage for us. Where are we in the story of Abraham?
We are near the end of his life, and we are in a moment of crisis. Genesis 23 opens with a death. Sarah, the wife of Abraham, has died.
And this is huge. I mean, Sarah isn't just a wife. She is the co-recipient of the entire promise.
She absolutely is. She's the mother of Isaac, the promised seed. She's the one who, laughed at the angel and then bore the miracle child in her old age. She has been with Abraham through absolutely everything, from Ur of the Chaldees to Egypt, the wars, the famine. And now, at 127 years old, she dies.
And where are they when this happens?
They're in a place called Kiriath Arba, which we know as Hebron. It's in the land of Canaan.
Okay, so they are physically in the promised land. God promised this land to Abraham way back in Genesis 12. So, problem solved, right?
Yeah.
She died at home.
Well, that's the tension, isn't it? And this is the thing we often miss because we know how the story ends. We have to try to put ourselves in Abraham's sandals for a minute.
Okay.
God said, I will give you this land. So Abraham has been walking up and down this land for 60 years at this point. He's built altars to God, he's prayed, he's dug wells. But if you were to go to the courthouse in Canaan at that moment and ask, how much property does this man Abraham legally own? What would the answer be?
Zero.
Zero. Not 1 square foot. He's a squatter.
A squatter. That feels a bit disrespectful to the patriarch.
But it's the legal reality of his situation. The text itself calls him a sojourner and a resident alien. He's a nomad. He lives in tents. He moves his sheep from one open pasture to the next, but he has no legal title to any of it. He is, in effect, a guest who has overstayed his welcome by about 6 decades.
Wow. That puts a very different spin on the grief he's feeling. Because if your wife dies while you are effectively homeless, or at least landless, that has to shake your faith to its core.
It's a crisis of faith. Just think about it. The promise from God had 2 parts, land and seed.
Right.
The mother of the seed is now dead, and land. Well, it belongs to other people. From a human perspective, it looks like the promise has completely failed.
It looks like God made a promise and it just didn't come through.
Right. I mean, if I promised you a mansion and 50 years later you were still sleeping in a tent on my front lawn, you would start to have some questions.
I would have some very serious questions.
Yeah. So Abraham is standing there, weeping over Sarah's body. And in the midst of that grief, he has a very practical, very urgent problem. He has a body. And in that hot climate, you can't wait around. He needs a place to bury her. But because he doesn't own any land, he can't just dig a hole.
Why not? I mean, just go out in the desert somewhere.
You could, but that's what you do with an animal, or an outcast,
Mhm.
or a criminal. If you want a dignified burial, a family tomb, you need property rights. Otherwise, the actual owner of the land comes along a month later and plows right over the grave.
So he has to buy a plot of land.
He needs a foothold. And this is where we see that God's way of fulfilling his promises is often very different from our expectations. We might expect God to send down fire from heaven, wipe out all the Hittites, and just hand Abraham the keys to the city.
That's the movie version for sure.
That's the action movie version. But here, the very first piece of the promised land isn't won with a sword. It's bought with a wallet. And it's not a palace or a vineyard. It's a hole in the ground.
So Abraham goes to the locals.
Yeah.
The Hittites.
The sons of Heth, as the text calls them. And this interaction, which takes up verses 3 through 16, it's a masterclass in ancient Near Eastern negotiation. It's this very elaborate, very polite cultural dance.
I love this part because it feels so fake.
Yeah.
You know, Abraham says, "I'm a stranger among you. Sell me a burial site." And the Hittites say, "Oh, no, my lord, you are a prince of God among us. Take any of our tombs, the best one. Nobody will stop you."
It sounds so generous, doesn't it? Please, pick whatever you want. It's on the house.
Is it a real offer? Are they being genuine?
Almost certainly not. It's what we'd call performative politeness. It's like when you and a friend fight over the check at dinner, only with much higher stakes. If Abraham had actually said, "Okay, thanks, I'll take that one," and buried Sarah there, he would have put himself in a terrible position.
Why? I mean, free is free.
Because in that culture, a gift creates a debt. It creates a relationship of patronage. If I give you the land to bury your wife, then I am the benefactor. You are the recipient. I am up here. You are down there. And even more to the point, a gift of use is not a transfer of ownership.
So they're offering him the right to use the tomb, not the actual deed to the tomb.
That's most likely what's happening. Or even if they did give it to him, a gift can be revoked. Or my son can come to your son in 20 years and say, "Hey, remember how my dad was so nice to your dad? Well, we need a favor."
It's leverage.
It is massive leverage, and Abraham knows this. He cannot build the future of the nation of Israel on a handshake deal or a favor from a pagan neighbor. He needs clear, legal, undeniable ownership.
So he pushes back. He gets very specific. He asks for the cave of Machpelah, which belongs to a specific man, Ephron.
And listen to the word he uses. He asks for it as a possession. The Hebrew word is suza.
Luza, okay, you keep dropping Hebrew on me. What makes that word special? Does it just mean to buy?
No, you.
Yeah.
You buy a loaf of bread. You possess an estate. Isuza implies permanence. It implies inheritance. It's a word for something you pass down through your family. It means he wants to stop being a sojourner when it comes to this one plot of land and become the lord of it.
He wants to plant a flag.
He wants a deed. He wants it in writing. And Ephron, the owner, he hears this. And Ephron is a very shrewd businessman. He sees Abraham as desperate. His wife is dead, he's emotional, he's in a hurry, and he's known to be wealthy. This is like a shark smelling blood in the water.
So Ephron makes his counteroffer, and this leads us right into the section with the trees, which I am still waiting for you to explain to me. Abraham asks just for the cave.
That's right. Abraham's request is very modest. Let me buy the cave at the end of your field. He doesn't want the whole farm. He just wants the rock to put the body in.
And what does Ephron say?
Ephron says, very loudly in front of everyone gathered at the city gate, "No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it."
Wait a second. Abraham asked for the cave. Ephron is trying to force him to take the whole field.
Yes. And notice he uses that word give again. "I give it to you." But then, very subtly, he drops the price tag. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver? What is that between you and me?
That's a classic sales tactic. Oh, it's free. But, just for insurance purposes, if you were to pay for it, it would be 400 shekels.
It is. But the key here is the switch from just the cave to the field and the cave. Why does Ephron insist on selling the whole field? And why does the text later make a point of specifying, "and all the trees"?
I guess Ephron just wanted to offload a bigger piece of property. Maybe he was tired of farming it.
It's much, much more calculated than that.
Yeah.
And this is where archaeology really saves the day for us. We have actually found the Hittite law code.
We have their actual law books from that time.
We do, inscribed on clay tablets. And there are two specific laws, paragraphs 46 and 47, that deal with land tenure and feudal service. The technical term is ilku.
Ilku. Sounds like something you get from bad milk.
It's a headache, is what it is. Ilku was a kind of feudal obligation. It meant you owed the king taxes or military service or maybe labor on public works projects.
Okay.
Now, here's the rule. The ilku duty is attached to the land itself. If you sell the entire property, the whole field, the duty transfers to the new owner. But, and this is the key, if you sell only part of the property, like, say, just a cave at the edge of a field, the ilku duty stays with the original owner.
Hang on, let me get this straight.
Yeah.
So if Abraham buys just the cave,
Ephron, the seller, still has to pay the taxes and do the military service connected to that entire plot of land.
which Ephron definitely does not want to do.
Of course not. But it actually gets worse for Abraham. If Ephron retains the ilku, then legally speaking, Ephron is still the lord of that land in the eyes of the Hittite king. Abraham would be buying a cave, but he would effectively become a tenant on Ephron's estate. He'd be inserting himself into the Hittite feudal structure as a subordinate.
He'd become a vassal.
Yes. He would owe a kind of allegiance to Ephron. And Abraham serves no king but Yahweh. He cannot allow himself to become entangled in pagan feudal obligations.
So when Ephron insists, no, take the whole field, what he's really saying is, I am not keeping the tax burden for this. You take the whole thing or we have no deal.
Correct. But for Abraham, this is actually a good thing, even though it's going to cost him more money. By buying the field and the trees represent the productive capacity of the land, the agriculture. He is taking over the ilku. He is buying what we would call the freehold.
He's buying his independence.
He is completely severing all legal and social ties to Ephron. Once he buys the field and the trees, Ephron has no more claim. The Hittite king has no claim on Abraham as a vassal of Ephron. Abraham becomes a sovereign owner of that plot of ground.
That completely explains the language in the text. Verse 17, the field of Ephron, the field with the cave. And all the trees that were in the field throughout its whole area was made over to Abraham. It's not just poetic, it's legal precision.
It is a lawyer closing every single loophole. Moses lists the trees so that 400 years later, no descendant of the Hittites can come back and say, hey, you Israelites own the cave, but those olive trees are mine, so you owe me half your harvest.
And by the way, your oldest son needs to report for military duty.
Precisely. It prevents all future disputes. It creates this hermetically sealed unit of land that belongs to the kingdom of God, right in the middle of pagan Canaan.
That's fascinating. It's not just scenery, it's sovereignty.
Sovereignty is exactly the right word. And there's a beautiful Hebrew verb that's used in verse 17 and again in verse 20 to describe this transfer. The ESV translates it as was made over, but the Hebrew word is wayyāqom.
Wayyāqom.
It literally means, and it stood up, or it arose.
The land
Yeah.
stood up.
Yes. So the field stood up to Abraham as a possession. It's a form of personification. It's almost as if the land itself, which has been groaning under the weight of pagan idolatry, recognizes its true covenanted owner.
Like it's saluting him.
Like it's coming to attention. We talk about the promised land, right? Well, the land has been waiting for the children of the promise. And here, for the very first time, a piece of it stands up and welcomes Abraham. It passes from common use into holy use.
That's a chilling image. In a good way. The dirt itself knows what's happening.
The dirt knows. Paul says in Romans chapter 8 that the whole creation groans, waiting for the sons of God to be revealed. Here, one little field stops groaning and stands up.
So the deal is structured, the trees are included, the independence is secured. But a deal isn't really a deal unless people see it happen. We need to talk about the setting, the city gate.
This is so important. In our world, if you buy a house, you go into a quiet office with a title agent and maybe a lawyer, and you sign a huge stack of papers. It's a private affair.
Mm-hmm.
In the ancient Near East, if you want something to be permanent and legally binding, you do it in the loudest, busiest, most public place possible. The city gate wasn't just a door in the wall. It was the courthouse. It was the city council chamber. It was the market. It was the town square and the local newsfeed all rolled into one. Everything of consequence happened at the gate.
So when the text says it was done, in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in at the gate, it means the whole town was watching this go down.
The whole voting populace, all the witnesses. Abraham wants this to be a matter of undeniable public record. He doesn't want a secret deal that can be argued about later. He wants thousands of eyes on this transaction.
Why is he so careful about the title?
Because he's a stranger in the land. And because he actually believes God's promise, he knows his descendants are going to be there for a very long time. He needs a title deed that will stand up in court for generations to come. If he just shook hands with Ephron in a tent, Ephron's grandson could come along and kick Isaac off the land. But a public transaction, witnessed by the entire city council, that is ironclad.
And he pays for it. 400 shekels of silver. We touched on this, but give us some context. Is 400 shekels a lot? Like, is this a fair price, or did he get ripped off?
It was highway robbery.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Most historians and commentators agree that 400 shekels was an absolutely exorbitant price. Just for comparison, later in the Bible, King Omri buys an entire mountain to build the capital city of Samaria for 6,000 shekels. Jeremiah buys a family field for 17 shekels.
Wow.
400 shekels for one field and a cave. Ephron saw Abraham coming from a mile away.
He gouged him.
He absolutely gouged him. He knew Abraham was in a position of weakness. He was grieving. He needed a burial spot immediately. And he named a ridiculous price. What is 400 shekels between friends?
So why didn't Abraham haggle? I mean, that's the culture, right? Ephron says 400, you offer 100, and you meet somewhere around 200.
Abraham doesn't hesitate for a second. Verse 16 says, Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver. Boom, done. And it specifies current money with the merchant. That means it was high-quality silver, standard weight, no funny business, no clipped coins.
Why pay the full price? Why pay the gouged price?
Because he wants zero ambiguity. If he haggles and gets a lower price, Ephron could say later, I did him a favor, I gave him a discount. And that creates that sense of obligation again. Abraham wants to be able to say, for all time, I bought this. I paid the full asking price. I owe you nothing.
It's about his integrity.
It is. And it's a quiet rebuke to us sometimes. I think there can be a tendency in some Christian circles to look for the Christian discount.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a brother in the Lord. Can you knock 10% off for me?
Or even the prosperity gospel idea that if you have enough faith, you'll get things for free or supernaturally cheap. Abraham rejects that completely. He is willing to lose a lot of money to secure a testimony that is beyond reproach. He provides, as Paul would later say, things honest in the sight of all men.
He's recognizing that his witness to these pagan neighbors is far more valuable than his bank balance.
Precisely. The sons of Heth are watching every move. They see a man who keeps his word, who pays his debts without arguing, and who honors his dead with dignity. That speaks volumes, far louder than any sermon could.
Okay, so we've covered the legal stuff, the financial stuff.
Yeah.
The deed is basically signed. The silver is weighed. Abraham owns the trees. Now we get to the part that you promised at the beginning would blow my mind. The theology.
The so what of it all.
The so what. Because at the end of the day, Abraham has just spent a fortune to buy a cemetery.
Yes, he has.
And that seems, well, it seems morbid. It seems like a defeat. God promised him a land flowing with milk and honey, a land of life. And the very first piece he gets is a land of death.
It is the ultimate paradox. But this is where the Reformed view of Scripture, and especially our understanding of the covenant, opens this whole thing up. This is not a defeat. This is an earnest.
Earnest? You mean like earnest money when you buy a house?
Exactly like that. A down payment. When you buy a house, you put down a certain amount of money to say, I am serious about this. I'm going to complete this transaction. This grave is the down payment on the entire land of Canaan.
It's the first legal foothold.
It's the already and the not yet in physical form. We talk about that concept in theology a lot. Abraham now possesses the land legally. That's the already. But he doesn't rule it or fill it yet. That's the not yet. But by buying this plot, he is staking a legal and spiritual claim. He's saying, this whole land belongs to my family. We're just starting here.
But why start with a grave? Why not buy a well? Or a house? A house is for the living. A grave feels like it's for the past.
But for the believer, a grave is not for the past. A grave is for the future.
Okay, you've got to unpack that for me.
If Abraham thought that death was the end, that it was all over for Sarah, he would have just buried her wherever was convenient. Or, more likely, he would have taken her body back to Mesopotamia, back to her father's house in Haran. That was the custom. You go home to die.
Repatriate.
Right. But Abraham refuses to send her back. He insists on burying her in Canaan. Why? Because he is making a profound declaration. He's saying that her home is not where she came from. Her home is the land of the promise. He is binding her physical body to the future of God's people.
It's a statement that God's promise survives death.
Yes, that is it. That's the whole point. If God's promise was only good for this life, then Sarah's death cancels the contract. Game over. But Abraham acts as if the contract is still very much valid. He's saying, God is not limited by our lifespans.
This connects directly to the Westminster Confession, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The Confession has this beautiful section, chapter 32, about what happens when we die. It says that the souls of the righteous go immediately to be with God in heaven, but their bodies, being still united to Christ, do rest in their graves till the resurrection.
United to Christ, even the bones, even the dust.
Even the dust. Now, Abraham doesn't know the name Jesus yet, but he knows that his God is the God of the living, not the dead. And by purchasing this land for a body, he's acting as an anti-Gnostic.
Anti-Gnostic, we throw that term around a lot. Gnosticism. Can you explain it for the person driving to work right now?
Sure. Gnosticism is a very old heresy, but it's very much alive today. It's the basic idea that the physical world, bodies, dirt, trees, matter is bad, or at least it's a temporary prison, and the spiritual world is good. The goal of Gnosticism is to escape the body and the physical world, to become a pure spirit floating on a cloud somewhere.
The old hymn, I'll fly away, oh glory.
In the bad sense of that, yes. If Gnosticism is true, then who cares about a grave? You burn the body, you toss the ashes in a river, it's just an empty shell like a crab shell, you're done with it.
But Abraham spends a fortune on a specific rock and a specific set of trees.
Because matter matters. The body matters. He isn't trying to escape the physical world. He is investing in it. He's acting on the belief that Sarah will need that spot again.
He believes she's coming back.
He believes in the resurrection of the body. He is planting her like a seed. You don't carefully plant a seed just to get rid of it. You plant a seed because you expect a harvest.
That is a powerful thought. He buys the land because he expects her to stand up on that very land again someday.
Exactly. And this act sets a trajectory for the entire rest of the Bible. This cave, Machpelah, it becomes the anchor for the patriarchs. Abraham is eventually buried there. Isaac and Rebekah are buried there. Jacob dies hundreds of miles away in Egypt. But on his deathbed, what does he make his sons swear?
Don't leave me in Egypt. Carry me back to the cave.
Carry my bones back. And Joseph does the exact same thing.
Joseph's case is even more dramatic.
It is. He dies, and he tells the Israelites, God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land, and he makes them take an oath to carry his bones with them when they leave.
I mean, can you imagine carrying a box of your ancestors' bones around the desert for 40 years?
It sounds gruesome to us, but it was an act of extreme forward-looking hope. Joseph was saying with his very bones, I refuse to let my final resting place be in the land of my exile. I want to be present for the victory.
I might be dead for now, but I'm not missing the final party.
That's it. That grave acted as a compass for Israel. Whenever they were suffering in slavery, whenever they were lost in the wilderness, they knew, our fathers are waiting for us in that cave. It pulled their hearts and their hopes toward the promised land.
So let's bring this all into the New Testament. We're Reformed Christians. We always read the Old Testament with the light of the New. How does Abraham's dark cave point us to Jesus?
Well, it points us from possession to inheritance. Abraham paid a high price silver to secure a place for the dead to wait. Jesus paid the ultimate price, his own blood, to secure eternal life for the dead.
The sources mentioned a parallel between the public nature of the purchase and the crucifixion.
Yes. Abraham didn't do this deal in a corner. He went to the gate. It was a matter of public record. Paul says in Acts that the crucifixion was not done in a corner either. It was a public historical event. It's verified. It happened.
And the tomb itself.
Machpelah is a tomb that is, as far as we know, still there today. It's full of bones. It is a monument to faith, but it is a monument to death waiting for life. Jesus' tomb is fundamentally different.
It's empty.
It's empty. Abraham's deed says God will keep his promise through death. Jesus' empty tomb says God has conquered death.
And we have an earnest, too, just like Abraham did.
We do. Ephesians chapter 1 says the Holy Spirit is the earnest, the down payment of our inheritance. Just as that field was the physical proof that Canaan belonged to Abraham's family, the Spirit living in your heart right now is the proof that the new creation belongs to you.
That bridges the gap perfectly. We have deed just like Abraham. It's just signed in a different kind of ink.
Signed in blood and sealed by the Holy Spirit.
So we've walked through the history, the law, the money, and the theology. But now comes the part where we have to land the plane. Most of our listeners aren't out buying caves in Hebron today. How does Genesis 23 actually apply to me?
I think it hits us in 3 or 4 very practical, maybe even uncomfortable areas. The first is what we alluded to earlier, business ethics.
The city gate principle.
Yeah. Right. We live in a world that loves to cut corners. We love the deal. But if you're a Christian, your business life, your gate life is a stage. People are watching you.
The world basically assumes everyone has a price, or that everyone is trying to cheat them in some small way.
And when a Christian acts with scrupulous honesty, when you pay the full invoice on time, when you don't hide the defect in the car you're selling, when you don't fudge the numbers on your taxes, it shocks people. It testifies to a completely different value system. Abraham was willing to be poorer in silver to be richer in his witness.
That's a hard question to ask ourselves. Am I willing to lose money in order to protect the reputation of Jesus?
It's the only question that really matters in our business dealings. The second application is a bit heavier, but we have to go there. We have to talk about how we think about death.
We're a culture that denies death. We hide it away. We sanitize it.
We do. But Abraham faced it head on. And practically speaking, he made sure the transaction. He was organized. He put things in order.
You mean like wills and estate planning?
I do. I know it sounds unspiritual to some, but it's actually a profound act of love for your family. Leaving your family in chaos with no will, no plan, forcing them to fight over assets while they're grieving, that is not a godly legacy. Abraham made sure the deed was clear so that Isaac wouldn't have to fight Ephron's kids later.
So get your house in order.
Get your house in order, and while you're at it, plan your funeral.
That sounds dark.
It's not dark, it's strategic. A Christian funeral is one of the last and greatest witnesses we have. It shouldn't just be a celebration of life where we pretend death didn't happen and just show a slideshow of vacation photos. It should be a protest.
A protest against death.
Yes, and a proclamation of the resurrection. We bury the body. We don't just dispose of it, because in that act, we are preaching a sermon without words. We are saying, this person is planted here in hope.
That really changes the vibe of a cemetery. It's not a garbage dump for bodies. It's a garden.
The word cemetery actually comes from a Greek word meaning sleeping place. It's a dormitory. We're simply putting them to bed until the morning of the resurrection.
And that leads right into the final point, grieving. The text says very clearly that Abraham wept for Sarah.
He did. And this is so important for some of our Reformed listeners who can sometimes get a little too stoic. There can be this idea that if you have good theology, you shouldn't cry. You should just say, it is well with my soul, and carry on.
Right. Don't be sad. They're in a better place.
That is true. But death is still an enemy. It's an intruder. It's unnatural. It tears apart what God has joined together. It is okay to weep. Jesus wept at the grave of Lazarus. Abraham wept for Sarah.
But we grieve differently.
We grieve, as Paul says, but not as those who have no hope. Our tears are just as salty as everyone else's. But they aren't tears of ultimate despair. We look at the grave and we see a waiting room, not a cliff edge.
And that brings us right back to that long-term view. Abraham bought the field for the future.
He took liquid assets, his silver, and he exchanged them for a permanent heritage. He invested in the promise, and that's the challenge for us, isn't it? Are we investing our time, our money, our hearts in things that are just for today? Or are we investing in the kingdom that is coming?
Are we buying the field, or are we just, renting the tent?
Exactly.
This has been a really surprising deep dive. I have to admit, I will never look at a list of trees in the Bible the same way again.
That's the goal. There are no boring parts of Scripture. There are just parts we haven't dug deep enough into yet.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to chew on this week. We saw Abraham standing in that field, holding a legal deed, looking at a grave, but seeing a city whose builder and maker is God. He bought a grave to prove he believed in the future.
Well, it was the ultimate wager of faith.
So here is the question for you. What actions are you taking today with your money, your planning, your relationships, your family that would make absolutely no sense unless the resurrection is true? Think about that.
If the resurrection isn't true, Abraham was a fool who drastically overpaid for a useless cave. But if it is true, he was the wisest investor who ever lived.
Thank you for joining us on Reformed Thinking. We'll see you next time.
Grace and peace.